So this is Al and Steve. This is episode 5, part 1. And food for the day is torchies.
And I've got leftover from last night, Ike's sub. I've got the Hunter Biden avocado. It's basically like California, like a, what do they call that? The with the avocado.
California Club kind of thing?
It's basically that.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
They just introduced that. I don't know. From all I know is maybe in the last year or two, I've seen a couple of these mics pop up, and they're good. They're from Jersey or some shit. Out east.
Obviously, there are plenty of things to talk about. The only thing off the top of my head that I was thinking of is last time we mentioned, I keep getting his name, Mahmoud Khalil. We had his abduction that we were talking about, and in the span of about a week, not only have we found out about literally dozens more, but apparently most of them happened over a week ago, but you know, they were in solitary or they were kept out of the public eye and nobody knew about it. And so it gets really scary really fast.
Yeah, basically the only way I'm finding out about this stuff is not through traditional media sources. And I don't think that this is like a case where we're getting misinformation. It's just individuals coming out saying, hey, so-and-so has disappeared and I don't know what's going on. And in every case that the ones that I'm getting presented with or are coming across are actually cases of people that are either coming into the country with a visa and getting abducted for no apparent reason whatsoever, like the Canadian female who spent how long? 10 days? 2 weeks?
About 2 weeks, yeah.
Something like that. And who came out of it upset and obviously distraught, but with incredible amount of composure, where she was saying that, look, I had it bad and it was a horrible situation for me. However, the people that are in there are having a much worse of it than me. And some had been there for extended periods of time, but nobody knowing what the hell's going on. So, you know, she was Canadian. She was a Canadian citizen. She was, you know, wrongfully abducted or whatever you want to call it these days. And so, at any rate, another story I came across was a person that is a citizen, I believe, was married for 20 years. This is in Maine, and had been just by, you know, ICE agents came and just took him in the middle of the night, and can't figure out what the hell's going on. That happened 7 days ago. So this is happening across the country, and these stories are coming out piece by piece. But once again, a lot of these people that it's happening to don't have the resources or the the money or the connections to actually get the word out and, you know, spread the news that this is happening. I don't know. Those are the two stories that I can come up with.
I've heard a few more, but the common thread with the majority of them, which is actually worse than Khalil's case, in my opinion, is that they're not being charged for anything really. It's very spurious. It's sometimes they're a resident, sometimes they're legally traveling, like you mentioned on visa, but the reasoning behind why they're being chosen is tenuous at best, and the end result is that people are being told that if you are not an American citizen, do not leave the country if you're here. Do not come here if you're coming from somewhere else.
Right. There's I don't know exactly which countries, but I know certain countries in Europe have given advisories not to come to America. Like you don't go to Iran, you know, that serious of a warning. And that's the situation we're in right now. And I mean, I can try to summarize. I don't know how accurate I'll get this story, but the one that I was watching recently was the one that I talked about in Maine. Was some kid moved there. He was the cousin of the guy who got, I think, or some relation to the person who was, you know, abducted. And he had just moved in there or something, and he was going 62 and a 55, which is basically he got pulled over because he was brown, and he was Hispanic. And then his license, I guess, after a month, it had been like 40 days or something. If you don't transition your license to Maine, it's not valid if you're out of state. So he hadn't done it in the specific amount of time, and he wasn't aware that it had to be that soon. So they told him to bring somebody to come get him and drive him back because they're impounding his car. That's how ridiculous this is. If it was a white dude, they never would have pulled him over and they would have let him go. So anyways, his uncle comes, right? He's a citizen, been there, married 20 years. They arrest him for some reason. I can't remember exactly what the reasoning behind it was, but it seemed really flimsy and stupid. And yeah, he disappeared for a week. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
People who think that like, oh yeah, I've been here for 20 years and I got a driver's license. Like something about it, like something really stupid. Yeah, they arrested him. But that's happening. It's happening, people. It's happening.
And I was thinking the group of Venezuelan immigrants that were here that were deported, the reasoning given by the Trump administration was, oh, they're all gang members or whatever. But what's funny about that, and of course, I mean funny in a not funny kind of way, is apparently I believe it was the president of Venezuela who, they had to deal with these people that had been shipped into their country, and they looked at them and they were like, no, none of these people are gang members. None of these people are part of the organization that they were charged with being a part of. Mm-hmm. None of them.
Well, what I've heard is one of them was a soccer player who had their team logo or something on there.
Yeah.
And they said it was a gang sign because maybe there was some correlation there. And that was like their evidence. Like that's what they cited as evidence was his tattoo. And a lot of these people, I think, too, is what I was hearing is, oh yeah, they have the tattoos. But there's like you said, no criminal charges, no case, no anything. And we had this discussion last week, so maybe we should move on to something else. But it's so insane, it's so stupid that anybody on any side of the fence would be okay with this, because you just can't. You can't be okay with this. If you are, I don't know. I can't talk to you. And most of these people that we're obviously right now. I don't feel like I'm trying to convince anybody of anything except for get people that are already on board riled up, or some of the people who are sitting on the bench, because I think we said this last week too. And I think I've seen, a couple cases where in these town halls, for example, I saw this woman come up there and say, look, I'm not involved in politics. I don't like to be involved with politics. I just like to go about my business. She almost said verbatim what I was saying to Al last week. So most people just want to live their life in peace, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to have to deal with it. But now it's in their world. Now it's in their world. They're like, you know what? I got to get involved because this is bullshit. So that's what I'm hoping. I can speak to those people and I can get some people riled up. As far as the people who don't get it, they're lost. I don't know how you can. Some of them maybe that are getting affected are saying, oh, this or that, but they're trying to blame Musk or they're trying to waffle. And as soon as it doesn't affect them anymore, they're going to go right back to hating minorities or whoever they're going to hate. As long as it's not affecting them. So yeah, maybe they won't go as far as the crazy fascism we have, right now in the super MAGA world. But they're just going to go right back to everyday, bullshit. So, yeah, those people you're never gonna get. You're not going to get those people.
Well, and what's interesting about the town halls is that the people showing up, they're not exclusively or even necessarily predominantly Democrats. They're people who are being affected, which includes everybody. Mm-hmm. But they're being shut out by, if they have Republican leadership, they're being ignored, shut down, or even forcibly removed from these meetings.
Yeah.
Or just blatantly lied to in just the worst gaslighting you can imagine.
Like that one, I can't remember where she was from, but it's going around the social media sphere, where she's like, I can't believe you people are getting so upset over politics. You're going to have to give yourself a heart attack. It's like, wow. That is like the most abuser language I've ever heard.
If politics were literally just people talking in a vacuum, that would be one thing. But now it's people losing their jobs and people not being able to pay their rent and people not getting their social security checks and all of these kind of issues. And it's no longer, politics is over there.
Well, it never really.
Well, it never was, but
because it never affected these people. But
right.
here's the deal. they're starting to understand the abuser language and mentality, where they're just sitting there going, "Are you trying to make me go insane right now? Telling me that like I'm going into hysterics?" It's like, you could go back to the 1800s when they put women in insane asylums because they would lose their shit over their abusive husband, like beating and raping them, like. Like, and then they put them in the mental institution. This is the kind of gaslighting they're doing to these people. Like, why are you getting so upset? Musk on TV, crying on Fox News.
That was
shit.
pathetic. That was beyond pathetic.
How could they do? Why are they doing this?
Well, gee, you cut a bunch of people's jobs. You lied about the way our country works. I'm trying to think what else, but basically, you did more damage to this country in a matter of days than anybody else has done in years. And you wonder why we're pissed off. Jesus, dude, are you really that stupid? Maybe he is. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's really hard to tell with him sometimes whether it's an act or whether he's actually that stupid.
Like I said, I think their psychological framework is so upside down that the average person can't understand what is happening in two different ways. One is the ones that are getting duped by the smoke and mirrors of these types of people, the Trumps and the Musks of the world. And then there's the people who are watching this going stunned in disbelief at the outrageous. It's like a horrible magic trick that the guy who's performing the trick looks like he goes, and you're like, dude, I saw exactly what you just did, and it's totally ridiculous, and it's not even like you're out of your, like, what the fuck is that? And then there's the people going, wow, woo, and you're like, dude, you didn't see that? You didn't see that sleight of hand? It's so fucking obvious. And then the magician thinking they're like being like, not even realizing they're doing a magic trick because they're so twisted in their head. It's like literally living in a backwards, upside down, crazy world, and half the sane population is going, I gotta get out of here. I can't handle this. This is so ridiculous. Oh my god. It's watching an insane person trick insane people or dupe gullible people while you're like sitting here going, I can't watch this anymore. I watch old George Carlin skits, and he's going back to the 70s, and all this stuff started going down after the Civil Rights Act. And these guys nailed it. You had George Carlin, you had Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
And they were just telling you exactly what's going to happen.
And Carlin just kept getting more and more cynical the older he got.
Yeah, because he was just like, you know what, forget it. Like, you can't help humanity. They've lost their minds. You can tell them, you can warn them, you can show them. They don't care. They're so lost in their delusions.
I think Carlin was the one who said something along the lines of, I like people as individuals, but when you get them in groups or countries or organizations, any of that stuff, and not good.
Yeah. Some individuals that came in.
Well, that's true too. I didn't mean that all individuals, obviously.
But, it's just, it's mind-numbing at times. And even, people that you would have thought were somewhat reasonable. I was having this discussion, and they were like, yeah, Trump, don't like Trump, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think the other side is they're just disingenuous. That time, Kamala wore that necklace and she was doing a fundraiser, and I'm like,
what does that have to do with anything?
That's a false equivalence.
That's worse than a false equivalence. That's reaching.
Well, I like to think, yeah, it's reaching. I know, but yeah. So I mean, my point being is, and then you tell them, everybody inherently has bias, and at some extent, some of these biases are racist, are against different colored people, and until you acknowledge that, you can't get past it. Look, I have a bias that when I drop this, it's going to hit this, right? That's a learned behavior. That's how the brain works, right? Now, when you've been told and fed this information over and over, and it's systemic in society, that is going to influence your world, right? If you grew up in Texas and you're a white dude from rural Texas, and all you hear is this stuff over and over, but you think you don't have a racist bone in your body because you have a black friend and a Hispanic girlfriend or whatever, but you say stuff like, I think diversity, equity, and inclusion is bad because it's racism, or I think that Kamala wearing a necklace is bad because it's like, dude, do you
Did you
do you
listen to yourself?
understand how insane you sound to a sane person right now? That you're saying you're not biased, that you're not racist. When you say this incredibly racist shit, the only person you're gaslighting at this point is yourself. Now, I'm not saying these people are inherently bad or evil or don't, but and that they're not transitional. At least they've reached a certain level of like libertarianism, or they've escaped some of the most darkest. Look, they're not taking people out to the woodshed and whipping them, right? They're not doing that anymore. They're allowing them into their life, but hell, don't make them my boss. Don't let them tell me what to do, or don't let them compete equally with me. Right. It's like, just because you got to there and you don't think you're racist doesn't mean, and then you support these racist ideas. And look, let's give, maybe let's not, but let's give some of these people a small fraction of the benefit of the doubt. And they have maybe been duped by people telling them that DEI is something it's not, by people telling them that things that are a certain way aren't a certain way, by the lies they've been told about history. And maybe it's just going to take some time, because look, when I was younger, holy crap, some of the stuff I believed or even, conjured up in my head. Yeah, I'm not proud of that stuff, but hey, it happened because how I grew up. But I recognized it at some point and went, whoa, wait a minute. The more I got educated, the more I started thinking things through, the more I started having, things happen to me, and then I had some empathy. Yeah, then all of a sudden it all starts to come together, and I start realizing, the whole nature of myself, and then outside of myself as well, what's going on. So, are some of these people capable of, coming to their senses? Maybe some of these people need a little grace. I don't know. I hope they can. I don't know. It's just so hard at times to dismiss all of it and say, you know what, you're so fucking lost, I can't talk to you anymore. Get the fuck out of my life.
Yeah. I found myself kind of wearing two faces, so to speak. And what I mean is, like, obviously I talk about this stuff all the time. I think about this stuff all the time. So you would expect that if I get in a conversation about it, that I would just kind of go off and be like, oh yeah, I think the economy is going to do this, and this is what's going on. Mm-hmm. But if it's with, say, friends or family, then I've learned to kind of muzzle it, because it's just not worth going down this track that's going to get nasty. Now, if they push it far enough, then I'll give my real feelings. But otherwise, I kind of find myself holding back a whole lot. And it's just depending on the instance. Sometimes it's more awkward than anything else, which isn't the worst thing in the world.
Right.
But
I just find that, like, after giving a few questions to the individual, if they're not coming around or answering the questions, in a legitimate, like, when I say legitimate, I mean they're being honest about answering the questions, or they're being evasive, then I just disengage, because or if I don't see a spark start to light up in their eyes, like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't think about it that way. But if they just start going, well, you saying that white guys from Texas is just being equally as racist. And like I said, everyone is biased. Yes, my bias is when I talk to a white dude from Texas, he's probably going to be a racist bigot. Why is that bias? Because 9 times out of 10, that's what freaking happens. I get like, but what I try to do is this. This is what I try to do, recognizing that bias. Let's have a conversation. Usually I don't get 5 minutes in before I go, yeah, I was right. But I gave him a chance. Yeah. I gave it a chance. Like, you confirmed my confirmation bias, and, we didn't have to go any further. But I know that exists, just like I know my confirmation bias that when I drop this, because that's the way the brain works. Your brain gets, and if you don't understand how your brain works, you're not going to understand your, cognitive distortions and your confirmation biases, and try to avoid those. They exist. Without them, you'd go insane, because you would have no frame of reference to make any decisions. So there you go. Well,
and unfortunately, I found that even if I block out full on MAGA, I still end up having to give the benefit of the doubt to people from our side who start making crazy claims. Like somebody on Blue Sky a day or two ago who was going off about trans stuff. And I was basically playing devil's advocate saying, okay, the things that you're saying about the way the body works and whatever, let's assume all that's not true for sake of argument. The number of trans people that exist in the United States is so low that the likelihood that this is ever going to affect you directly, assuming the worst case of what you said, is still, as I put it, you have a better chance of winning the lottery twice. You know, it's like, it's a non-issue. Why are you making an issue out of things that aren't?
Right, and that's assuming this. One, that you know nothing about biological science,
right,
that sex is different than gender, and that sex is a spectrum with multiple, points of reference to say what you're on, and it should be left to the individual when they get old enough to make that decision. How old that is, I don't know. You can debate that or whatever you want. We did that for like 30 years.
But right now, it's illegal below the age of 18 for anybody to really do anything, anyways. I mean, at least in a lot of states.
Yeah, who can do that? And when do you tell the parents? So there is, but these things have been going on for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
This is none of your business, if it's not involving you personally, first of all. So first of all, you don't understand the science, right? You don't understand the science. You don't know what you're talking about. Experts have, in psychology and biology for years, tried to explain this to you. It's way too complicated for you because everything in your life is binary, good or bad, white or black, black and white, whatever, right? So that's what their thing is, right? Secondly, we've already thrown that out the window. You know anything about psychology or science, right? Or psychiatry or neuroscience or anything. So you don't know anything about that. Secondly, what was my second point going to be? First of all, it's the science factor that they don't understand fully, right? And then let's just leave it at that. There was a second point I had. I can't remember what it is now. So let's just say you're being, like you said, completely pragmatic then. Oh, empathy. I was going to say, and you lack empathy. And you have no empathy. So you don't know the science and you have no freaking empathy for anybody. Because you don't care how that person feels or what happens to them or that their views or their rights are getting taken away or any of these things. So you remove the science, remove the empathy, remove basic human decency and common decency and any form of values or anything, right? So you're just a freaking asshole, period, right off the bat, and an ignorant asshole to begin with, right? You were just saying, just out of pragmatism, why are you worried about this?
Right.
So you could be an ignorant buffoon, but why are you worried about this? Because it's never going to affect you.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the person was putting it in terms of girls' sports. I don't know whether he meant high school or college, but I'm assuming the person was too old to have it affect them directly. And even if they had a daughter or niece or whatever, the chances of it still affecting them in positively, negatively, or otherwise are, again, statistically insignificant.
And then let's just take it past that. But, okay, so you're worried about women, right? You're worried about protecting women, but you voted for 28-time, sexual assault,
yes.
sexual assault accusations, one conviction,
34 counts of
20-something counts of
on top of which he was accused of raping one of his ex-wives, and I mean the list goes. And we heard the tape where he basically justified his thinking for assaulting any woman.
Because he can, because he's rich and famous.
But to go back one more time to the trans thing as it relates to women's rights, they're using the issue to infringe on actual girls' rights by saying, "Oh, now we can go in and require you to be subject to a physical." Basically, the school has somebody who's going to check your biology, so to speak. I mean, if that's not a serious invasion of your personal space, I don't know what is, because we're worried about this thing that basically doesn't happen. And so you're creating a problem based on a problem that doesn't exist.
And why should the federal government be involved with women's sports when there's a governing body
Right.
to make that decision.
And not to mention at the state level, the state controls the stuff that the schools do. I mean, there are already
okay, that's what we'll talk about.
But the point is that there are organizations outside of the federal government that are already dealing with
and
this
they're already
positively
talking
or
about
negatively.
how the federal government shouldn't be involved in your and there you go. Federal government making a thing about a small fraction of society, and you're talking about caring about women's you are the most in one of these yo-yos who's this Republican dude just got arrested for soliciting a 14-year-old or
Something like that. Yeah.
Not even like an 18-year-old, like a 14-year-old. Oh, come on, man, really? Look, whatever somebody's deal is, when you're talking about two consenting adults, that's one thing. But when you're talking about what these guys are doing, and they're getting the hypocrisy about it is beyond measure. First of all, hypocrisy is beyond measure. Secondly, there's no concern for women outside of this one thing. When all of a sudden they're worried about their daughters, but they can take them to church where it's probably going to happen umpteen times, or your relative or somebody. That's where it's going to happen. Not in a bathroom because of a trans person.
Right.
It's never happened. There's not a single case. There is one case, but the person wasn't even trans. They just dressed like a woman.
But I'm not even sure they dressed like a woman. They were just in the
They
bathroom.
just went in the bathroom.
Or if they did.
And what are you going to do? Tell them to drop trowel, like you said? They are inventing outrage over something they don't give a shit about in any other way because they don't understand it. Period. So we're going to leave it there. Next, we're going to talk about
Sure, go ahead.
The school, the federal,
Vouchers?
no, getting rid of.
The Department of Education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. All right, next time.